Well, this is special. Paul Tucker, hello.
Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Really good to meet you. I can't believe the first thing we need to discuss is that this wonderful album that I'm going to present right now to the camera was never actually released on vinyl back in the 90s. That has blown my little mind.
Actually, you know what? It's really strange. I don't know if it was because it was the heyday of the CD.
Yeah.
But Ocean Drive, Postcards from Heaven, none of our records, none of our albums have ever been released on vinyl.
So Postcards wasn't either?
No, Postcards.
I think that's exactly right, because in the 90s we started to get, CDs in our cars and stuff, didn't we? And it's bizarre, because if any album was owing itself to that beautiful kind of crackling sound, that kind of organic vinyl sound, it's your work.
Actually, you know what? When I got the test pressings for this, I mean, I've always thought that CDs sound amazing. I mean, when I first heard CDs in the 80s, I was like, oh man, this sounds incredible, I can remember listening to Soul to Soul, Club Classics 1 on CD, and I was thinking, this is mind-blowing. So I was always a bit like, yeah, CDs are better than vinyl, even though people were saying, vinyl's better, But when I heard the test pressing of Ocean Drive a few weeks ago, I was like, wow. It's kind of opened it up again for us.
Did it sound different?
Yeah, it's just amazing. It was just like, everything in its place. It was really, 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 really precise. It was like, yeah, lovely bass.
Well, listen, you and I, in this next hour, we're going to get stuck into the album.
Okay.
And I've got a million questions, but I thought I'd chuck a curveball. I'd like to start with, personally, my favourite Lighthouse Family song, and it's from Postcards. It's Rain Cloud.
Oh, brilliant.
I love this song. It's like all of your songs, people have got memories and stories, but for me, this was when Princess Diana passed away in about 97, and it was really hard working in radio to find appropriate music. And Rain Cloud popped up, and I think even to this day, it's beautiful, but it's kind of... It's got the whole sadness vibe as well. There's a million different feelings when I hear this song.
Bittersweet, isn't it?
It really is. Tell me a bit about this.
Well, actually, originally it was called Living Under a Rain Cloud, and it was really about it started life as a song about living in Britain in the early 90s and everything about it, really. It was like, there must be something better. Living under a rain cloud, it was kind of like, I suppose that is kind of like what it's like living in this country, isn't it?
It really is, isn't it? Even more so now.
In so many different ways.
But even the first 10 seconds of this song takes your mind on a little trip. So let's start from the beginning. The beginning's a very good place to start. Tell me, how did the Lighthouse Family start?
Well, really, the thing that kicked us off was Ocean Drive, the song Ocean Drive. In the 80s, I wanted to be in a band. I used to I was a big U2 fan. I used to follow U2 around. I had keyboards and stuff at home. Used to listen to records and try and work out how they were made. Trevor Horn records, Frankie Goes to Hollywood records, stuff like that. Tears for Fears records. Trying to write songs. Went to university in Newcastle. I was doing a French and German degree. In the third year, I had to go to Paris for a year. And when I got back, Newcastle University said to me, we've just checked your attendance and you're going to have to do it again. And I was like, oh, right, okay. And they were like, and you're going to have to pay for it. And I was like, well, the only way I can afford to do that if I sell all my instruments. It was a bit of a kind of red pill, blue pill moment. You're going to finish your degree or you're going to be in music. And I was like, am I really that good? It was a kind of one of those moments.
Yeah.
So what I did was I sold my gear, and as soon as I'd done it, I thought, oh man,
what have I done?
Yeah. And my old man had booted me out because of the university stuff, and I just split up with my girlfriend, and I was feeling a bit sorry for myself, and I was kind of like, actually, you know what? You don't need equipment to write a song. You just have to sing it. So I just thought, I'm just going to try and sing something. I'm going to sing the way I feel.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I did was the first verse and the chorus of Ocean Drive. And then I was like, actually, you know what? I really like this. It was kind of like 11 o'clock at night. I didn't have anything to record it on. this is before mobile phones and voice memos and all this.
Yeah.
I had a friend
who write it down.
Yeah, I had a friend who had a cassette recorder, but it was like he's not going to be up till 7 o'clock in the morning. So I just stayed up all night, just walking around singing it, because I thought if I went to sleep, I'm going to forget it. So I just stayed up all night, and I went around to my friends. 7 o'clock in the morning, can I borrow your tape machine? You know, and I just sort of put that down, and then that was like beginning of 1989, January 89, and then I kind of finished my degree and stuff, and kind of like all this time I've got it in my head, this song, one day I'm going to do something with it.
And this was Ocean Drive.
Yeah, Ocean Drive. And then the catalyst for me actually doing something was when my girlfriend told me I was going to be a dad, and I was like, okay, right, I'm going to do that quick, because pretty soon I'm going to have to man up and stand by my bed. And so I kind of went into a little studio in Newcastle, spoke to a couple of friends about, you know, people who could sing. A mate of mine who was a DJ in Newcastle, a guy called Wayne McDonald, said, "Oh, Tunde, get Tunde in." And yeah, we just demoed Ocean Drive, and it was kind of a special moment, really. People were saying, "Well, hang on, there's something really cool about this." So I just made some phone calls to record companies who put out records by people I liked. At that time, it was Soul to Soul and Massive Attack and Stereo MCs, stuff like that. And sent some cassettes, remember them?
How very retro.
Cassettes in jiffy bags.
I mean, cassettes have come back as well now, you couldn't make all this up, could you, Paul? Really?
Yeah, I'm not having cassettes sounding good, though.
Okay,
no one's telling me that.
That's the limit. So Ocean Drive, so how many years is this? This is a special kind of anniversary, isn't it?
Well, actually, we started in 93, so it's our 30th anniversary as Lighthouse Family.
Yeah.
We signed our deal in September 93.
Right.
So it's our 30th anniversary. That record's been out for 28
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. What happened, Steve?
I know.
I wasn't paying attention.
Well, I said to you earlier, before we started recording this, you must know that you've soundtracked so many people's lives. The ups, the downs, the good, the bad. I've got a million relationships, all disastrous, by the way, Paul, that these songs have helped me get me back on my feet. So thank you for that, a personal thank you. Let me take you back to Ocean Drive then. When you first heard Tunde singing on the record, were you like, yes?
Yeah, actually, there was a moment in the room. I mean, there's a little studio by the cathedral in Newcastle, a little basement studio, and Tunde was in the booth, and he started singing, and everybody looked at each other. It was the first couple of lines, "Say It's True, Pink and Blue." He just started singing, everyone looked at each other, and there was a moment where it was like, everyone was just like, "Well, that sounds great," you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't even sure if it was going to work, you know. And I suppose, I mean, Tunde couldn't see it because he was in the booth, but yeah, it was a moment. And that was, as I say, that was the thing that kind of, people were saying, you've got to do something with this, you've got to try and do something with it. But yeah.
So the album came out. Let's talk about that. Actually, a couple of questions before we talk about the actual album. You're named after lighthouses, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there were two things really. One of them is when I lived in France, there were a load of us that used to go down to when I was in Montpellier for a bit in the south of France, in the year that I had to do again. And I was in Montpellier in the south of France, and we used to go down to the beach at night, and we were all skint. And there were about 10 of us. And we used to sit there, listen to tunes, drink a few of those little cans you get from the supermarket in France. It would be like 30 degrees. None of us has got a bean. Happy as Larry, you know. And there was a memory of that, you know, that you can be that happy with nothing.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, it's in the south of France, but you know. So there was a bit of that in the kind of DNA of it. Lighthouse Family, Ocean Drive, that kind of thing. Obviously, we had that song Ocean Drive, and also Newcastle. We thought it kind of pinned us geographically because of the lighthouses at Tynemouth and Whitley Bay.
Yeah.
You know, and I think as well there was a kind of a thing at the time with people like Soul to Soul and Massive Attack for a collective. You know, like you wouldn't necessarily have like a flute player or a trumpet player on every track. You just get people in to do stuff. It's a kind of loose collective, and I thought Lighthouse Family, it's kind of Yeah, that's where it came from. Really.
Wow. Yeah, amazing. And this album is a perfect example of a slow burner, really, isn't it? Because it didn't hit the big time immediately, did it? Tell me about that. We
recorded it in 94. We kind of started making the videos and stuff and putting the album's artwork together in early 95. We ran with Lifted in May 95. That was the first release, and it was kind of, I think it was number 61 in the chart.
Yeah,
I was over the moon. I'm like, I've got a record in the real chart. You know,
yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
you know, that's my record in the real chart. You know,
yeah.
But it's like, from the industry point of view, that's not really shining. But I mean, then we put Ocean Drive out in the autumn, toured, did a little tour of kind of very small, like universities and stuff, and tiny little places. And then the record company said, we want to run with Lifted again.
So this was for a second time to release Lifted.
Yeah, we want to go with Lifted again.
And what happened that time?
Well, the thing was, I thought it was a crazy idea. I'm like, well, we've just put Lifted out and it didn't work, so what are we doing it again for?
What was their thinking on that? Why did they want to stick it out again?
You know, I think they just thought they believed in the tune, you know.
Amazing.
The thing is, actually, in truth, we had these most amazing people at Polydor in the 90s. I mean, Colin Barlow, who signed us, this other guy called Lucian Grange, who's now Sir Lucian Grange. He runs the Universal machine now. But those two, they were like, absolutely, like, they were bulldogs with it. They had total belief, total faith, you know. They were kind of, you know, and it was Lucian's idea to run Lifted again. And
so is it fair to say that Lifted, as far as we're talking about singles, Lifted changed your life?
Yeah, it did, definitely.
In what way?
Yeah.
And was it overnight?
I mean, I think that's true, actually. I mean, I think that we'd been working hard for a couple of years, you know, and sort of kind of, you know, trying to you know, move the thing forward. And when Lifted was like, I think it was January 96, January 96, Lifted gone as, I think it was number 4 and Top of the Pops and stuff, and it was the beginning. And we thought, and actually I did think that. I did think, we're there, this is the beginning, you know. It's kind of like, this is a great start.
Well, it still sounds amazing. Track number 1 from Ocean Drive, Lifted. You know what I remember about the first time I heard Lifted? It was around the time, you know, our very own Chris Evans was doing The Breakfast Show on Radio 1, and you had Britpop, you had, like, you know, the Spice Girls and boy bands. You guys offered up some class. That's what I remember about that time, you know, early 96.
Thank you, Steve. It's really interesting you say that, because Chris, at that time, on The Breakfast Show on Radio 1, he made it his record of the week in May 95, the first time it came out.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever got a chance to thank him properly for that, but he was like, Lighthouse Family, I don't know who you are or where you are, but I love this.
Amazing.
And yeah, he was you know, he was a very, very early champion, you know, and yeah.
And the thing about that show, because I know Chris had a lot of control about that show, he just played music that he loved, you know? And you know, I remember hearing More Cheaper on his show, and other bands, the very first, like Oasis, Wonderwall, first time on his show, on a breakfast show, so that must have really helped. Do you, when you look back now, how did you think that you dealt with the overnight fame of Lifted becoming a big single? Suddenly you're on Top of the Pops, you know, you're in magazines.
Yeah, actually, you know what? It was funny. It was a bit like Mr. Ben, because we were living in Newcastle, and it was almost like we'd kind of get up in the morning and go to work, and it was almost like you know the way that Mr. Ben, that cartoon character, he'd kind of go away and live this magical dream world.
Yes, alternate universe.
And then he'd come home back to his little house, and it was kind of like that for us. We would sort of almost like go and do this thing and then come back, and it was like Newcastle was kind of our sanctuary and our sanity, really. I think it kept us.
You kind of kept grounded.
Kept us grounded, yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, it was a, you know, wonderful time, and you know, it's like I don't have any complaints. It was great. You know, it was really strange. You know, even when we were like making the videos for Lifted and stuff, you know, it was like I'd be getting a bus in Killingworth in Newcastle, into Newcastle, get a train down to London, then get on a plane to Los Angeles.
Amazing.
And then get driving out into the desert and you know, we had, you know, Giorgio Armani was styling us, and we kind of like had these black suits and stuff. That really was Mr. Ben, you know. And then we do all that, and then we sort of like go back, get on the plane back to London, and then we get on the train and get back on the bus to Killingworth, you know. It was sort of almost like this weird double life.
You know, we're picking tracks on this album. I wondered if we could get into an album track, Heavenly.
Yep.
I love it. Can you tell me about it?
Heavenly, we wrote with Tim Kellett. We were working with Tim. Tim was part of the original Simple Minds. Simply Red lineup.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think it's kind of it's got some of the DNA of Ocean Drive. It's got that brass riff in it. Don't tell me you're not happy here and that it don't mean a thing. You're waiting for a better deal, but that is not my scene. Yeah, that was about the idea of heaven, of like deferred gratification. You know, this big idea about heaven. It's going to be better. You know, it's going to be better later. It's like, yeah, listen to me getting all Mr. Poet on the mic, but yeah.
Were most of these songs written about that relationship at the late part of the 80s?
Do you know what? Ocean Drive was that. There are a few.
Yeah. And do you agree with that whole thing? And so many artists, so many songwriters say this: the best songs come out of painful, quite miserable times when you've had to pick yourself up and learn about love, life, humanity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I think all of our biggest songs, Lifted, High, Ocean Drive, they're all that. I mean, High, I was like, we were making the second album, and it was really tough because I had this song that everyone was telling me was a hit, and I hadn't even written the words, and I was under pressure to write this song, and I was kind of like, that's impossible. You can't just write a hit. Yeah. That's what you're asking me to do. I can write a song, but I can't say it's gonna be a hit. They're telling me it's got to be a hit.
Oh
and
gosh, how did that, the pressure?
I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I can do that. And actually the lyrics of the song, when you're close to tears, remember one day it'll all be over, is almost just a description of what that felt like in that sort of, you know.
So that's how you wrote High, was it?
I mean, it's kind of like a description of like, yeah, one day we're going to get so high.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, and Lifted as well. Lifted, when we wrote Lifted, the record company was kind of like a bit like, is this going to work? And we thought we might kind of, you know, it's not doing this isn't easy. You've got a lot of hurdles to hurdle, and you've got to kind of, you know, but yeah, Lifted was kind of like our backs were against the wall. We thought, but the record company, you know, are they going to release an album? Do they want to do an album? At the beginning, we didn't know.
Yeah,
you know, they were like, come on, let's have some songs, you know, and I think, yeah, all of those songs were kind of, as you just said, they were kind of like coming out of it, almost like I've said this a few times. You can write your way out of a dark corner. You can kind of write your way out of a bad situation. You kind of make music to kind of try and make yourself feel better. And you think, if I can do that and it works for me, then maybe it's going to work for somebody else as well.
Yeah, and it has. I mean, thank you. You've worked. I've had so many awful relationships. Saying to you earlier, each one of listening back to the album, I remember kind of places where I was living, mistakes I'd made, people I'd let down, but also good times as well. And they all were kind of quite triggering, but in a wonderful way on a summer's day.
Yeah, I mean, I do think actually what you're saying is, I do think there is a lot of that, you know, of going back over relationships and where you went wrong and what you did, and kind of trying to learn from it and thinking, you know, I think that happens in the lyric a few times in different places on our records. I think I say that a lot, you know. I think on Question of Faith, I think it says, I don't want to complain, the weather could be worse, but I wish I'd learned from my mistakes. You know?
That's exactly it.
You just keep doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
You know? It's yeah, I think that's everywhere. You know, those relationships and kind of looking at the same thing in different ways.
Can we stick on Goodbye Heartbreak? Mm-hmm. This is one of my personal favourites. I love this song. I love this song because it makes me happy and sad at the same time. Maybe melancholic's the word. I don't know what I'm looking for. But it's, honestly, tell me about this song because it's special.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the same one as well. Goodbye heartbreak, don't look for me because I don't need you now.
Yeah. So how do you understand those lyrics? What does that mean?
That's like the point where you're out the other side, isn't it? You know, it's
like I'm moving on.
Yeah, that's the one. It's like you're out the other side, but then that's always the time that it comes back, isn't it?
yeah, that's right. Yes, it is. But you know, this is a great example of whether you just enjoy the song on that level or you get involved with the lyrics. You know, the song is perfectly happy. I listened to it yesterday. It was a gorgeous day. Smiles all round. Listening to this, it gave me some swagger. Because actually, it's quite a sad song, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that a few of the songs, if you actually, I mean, we've been doing this recently in the studio, just kind of like stripping them back to look at the kind of the bare wood, if you like, of the songs, things like Ocean Drive and Goodbye Heartbreak and stuff. And actually, I think because you've got this production that's kind of quite sunny, it's quite bright, it's quite uplifting in its production. I mean, I like songs that are that have this kind of double edge to them, as you just said, that are kind of happy and they're sad at the same time. You know, I think High's quite a sad song. I think Ocean Drive's actually a sad song, but it's just this thing of like it kind of having this kind of double edge to it. It's almost like it's a love song in a way, but then also it's a kind of a hymn. You know, it's almost like it's doing lots of different things, but it's, as I said, when you take the songs back to the sort of bare wood, they are quite, some of them are quite, there is a kind of, the word you just used, melancholy.
Yeah,
them, you know? I mean, I used to love You Too. I mean, things like I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. I think that's kind of a hymn. You know, it's like but
it's more than just a song, isn't it? That
it's kind of got all sorts of stuff going on. It's like it's a song about love, but then there's also this kind of spiritual edge to it.
Yeah,
so it's like I like songs like that are kind of, you know, that they're, like you say, more. You want it to be more than the song if you can do it that way.
And you mentioned earlier Simply Red in passing. How much of an influence was Mick and the boys?
Not really, actually. Not really.
That surprises me.
I do think Mick's made some fabulous records. I mean, I do like. I mean, I listened to it in the 80s. You know, I loved Holding Back the Years.
Yeah,
I think that's an amazing song.
Again, it's a mood, isn't it?
It's like
takes you to a certain place.
Well, actually, I think what it is that I love songs that are like kind of almost, they're very visual. They're like movies. So I think Holding Back the Years has got that. It's like a little 3-4 minute movie. I think Boys of Summer, Don Henley, that's got that. It's like a kind of a, it's a really visual song. And I think Ocean Drive's got that as well. I'm really into that kind of, when I'm in the studio, I don't even know if I'm conscious I'm doing this, but I'm kind of trying to create this sort of like a picture, really. It's almost like a little movie.
Picture postcard.
There you go.
Isn't it? That's it. That is it, though, isn't it?
There you go.
I'm thinking of a gorgeous beach in, you know, California.
Yeah.
Happy couples and sad couples.
I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. Malibu. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. Can I? We'll go for another song of your choice in a minute, but can I ask? I'd love to play "Loving Every Minute" on this album special. Another song. I love this. If you ask me whether I liked Goodbye Heartbreak or Every Minute the best, I think both the same. I love them both. But this is very upbeat, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I love that tune, "Loving Every Minute." I think it's it's weird, actually. It's massive in Brazil, that song.
Yeah.
It was a theme for a television soap opera in Brazil. All the time we get people from Brazil sending us videos of them performing "Loving Every Minute." It's like,
How weird.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
It's kind of, it's just, well, it's I think it's amazing. The thing is like, I mean, even now it's like this is like the last 2 weeks I've had this, you know, like Loving Every Minute
all these
from
years
Brazil.
later.
Yeah, all the time. But it's like, I think that it's interesting that the songs kind of, they've gone off on their journey and they're sort of still singing, you know, they're kind of, Lighthouse Family is still sort of singing in all these different little corners in different places and doing different things, you know, in South America and Southeast Asia and Australia and stuff and Spain, and you know, and I get so many people coming to me all the time saying, I'm in Mexico, I've just heard hi in a taxi, or I'm in Russia, I've just heard hi, you know, just stuff like that, you know.
I just want to go into Loving Every Minute. What I was going to say to you was, would this be an example in your life when things were going right when you wrote this song?
Loving Every Minute, that's like Loving Every Minute is that relationship you were talking about before, where you're saying, actually, I know this is a nightmare, but I'm just going to put up with it because it's so good.
Yeah, in a warped way. We've all been there, haven't we?
It's like yeah, what was it? I won't mind, ain't going to give up as long as I know my own mind. Yeah. How many times are you going to let me down? It's just, you're keeping me hanging on as if I'm wrapped around your finger.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
We have. Some of us, too many times. But anyway, Paul, you don't want to hear about my catalogue of horror stories. So now here's a question for you. Did you realise, you must have realised back in the day that you've written a bunch of quality tracks. Did you hope that they would still be relevant and sound brilliant 30 years on?
Actually, that's a surprise, really, I think. I don't think you could ever engineer that, and I do think it's amazing that it's happened. I do feel very lucky, you know. I do feel I'm you know, it's been amazing, really. And the fact that, you know, I mean, somebody was saying to me last week that it was actually somebody at one of the collection societies was saying to me that somebody who worked there was 20 and they were telling them how much they loved Lighthouse Family and stuff, and he was like, you're not old enough. You know, he's like, you were born in like 2003.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
that must have made you feel great, though.
It's just like, I think there's a sort of, it's just that thing of it having new life. I mean, recently there was an Afrobeats artist called Ashake, and he asked to sample Ocean Drive for a track on his new album this year, and I was like, wow, Ashake, you know, is he not the guy, the Brixton Academy guy, the O2 guy? And he did this version of the song, and all of a sudden Ocean Drive's got this kind of new lease of life. It's got this boost in all the African countries. It's like everyone's kind of putting these little videos up of them singing Ocean Drive again, you know. And it's like, it's amazing, really, that it's kind of traveled like that. I mean, I think, in fact, if you think that, I suppose I wrote Ocean Drive in 1989, and it was probably 4 years before we recorded it. So
yeah.
It kind of,
and the mad thing is, if it had come out in 89, would it have worked?
Yeah, I don't.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because your sound is such a pivotal 90s sound for me, you know, a 90s sound that's carried on. But
so many things have got to come to line, haven't they, for things to work, you know? Yeah. I mean, I heard Noel Gallagher saying recently that, you know, nothing he could do now would have the same resonance as Wonderwall or Don't Look Back in Anger, because that was the constellation of circumstances in the 90s.
At that time for them.
At that time, you know.
Yeah.
But then going back to what you just said, I suppose, the Beatles records, you know, loads of those records, they just sound incredible now. I think you know, those Oasis records we just mentioned, they sound great. You know, it's like, it's just, I just think a song's a song, and I think if it's a song, you know, if it's a song, it can carry on. Is
there a track that we can play that you want us to play for, you know, for whatever reason, and tell me why?
I think maybe The Way You Are.
Yeah. I mean, this is a tune.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just got, I mean, when I heard the vinyl the other week, I was like, oh wow, hold on, The Way You Are. It's like,
did it come alive?
Yeah, it came alive. It's almost like there's a different energy about that track from the other stuff. It's obviously it's a much slower song, but it's just like I got lost in it for 5 minutes.
I felt that. I felt like it got under my skin.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of like, oh, okay, this is kind of heavy, a bit heavier than some of the other tracks.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you wrote this.
Well, it was kind of like this. It was to do with that bass line. There's a kind of stand-up bass line in there. It was like a acoustic bass, stick bass, and it just started from that. It was, I think I was listening to Massive Attack, Blue Lines at the time.
Yeah,
and it was just kind of, it spun out of that. Yeah, I mean, it was a mood really for me, the way you are, and I think as well, you know, lyrically, you know, in your search for something you didn't have to chase. You sacrificed the best things and nearly lost your way. I think there's a story in that.
Paul, as we get into this last track, a couple of questions for you. Okay, so this interesting question. With this album now, say that you met someone who'd never heard this album, how would you describe Ocean Drive in a sentence?
Well, what I said to Polydor when they were asking me about the demo was, I said, it's kind of uplifting sunshine music. That's what I said.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get all poetic about it. That is what I said. I mean, yeah.
Tell me the state of play with you and Tunde. Do you still hang out? Do you speak to each other? Is Lighthouse Family's not together anymore, is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, we got together to make a record for Polydor in 2019. Tunde had made a solo record prior to that, and I think he wanted to do something with that. And I think the record company said to him, you know, look, do that after we've done the Lighthouse Family record. And of course we kind of went into the cycle of making the last album, which I thought was a great record, you know, and we toured, and then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And we had a load of like festivals and stuff lined up, and we had to kind of pause. And I think probably from his point of view he's like, well, when am I ever going to get a chance to do this now, you know? I think it was a tricky time, you know, and we didn't come through it, you know. But to me it's like, you know, it's like, I mean, it's always been difficult. I mean, you know, we've just been talking about the lyrics that I write and the songs that I write, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to write something that is true for Tunde, because I write all the lyrics for the songs and he's singing them, you know. And I think that's always going to be a tricky one.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
But
when it works so well, didn't it?
Yeah,
like you can't manufacture what happened to you guys in the 90s with this album.
And it's me and him, you know. It's me and him. I mean, it's like when Tunde is in the sweet spot, it's like it's
magic, isn't it?
It's magic. Yeah, it's really, really good. But it's like, as I said, from his point of view, I mean, when he was doing his solo stuff, you know, he's like, he wrote a song called Words in My Mouth, and it's kind of like, it's a bit weird because I'm trying to write something that I think is true for him, you know, but it's always going to be a bit awkward, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think in duos generally, you know, Simon and Garfunkel, Oasis, which is a duo really.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think Tears for Fears, you know, it's a funny dynamic, you know. So, you know, and you don't find out until you get there, you know. But we, you know, as we've said, Lighthouse Family's music, it's still there, you know, and now we're sort of, you know, I just signed a new deal with Sony to curate the songs and to write new songs.
Amazing.
You know, looking after the legacy of Ocean Drive, that's what we're doing now, you know, like putting out on vinyl.
Does that mean that we could have more Lighthouse Family records with another singer?
I mean, you know, I think, I mean, I'm writing songs now, they're Lighthouse Family songs because I wrote them. Whether it probably won't, I don't know what'll happen. It's kind of a bit of a blank canvas. I mean, we've got a beautiful studio in Newcastle. We built a studio. We got the guys that built the rooms that we loved in London to build this studio for us on the riverside. It's a really lovely room. It's like it's like Trevor Horn's old room in Psalm, but we've got this, you know, I'm really lucky, you know, and I think that we've just done the Sony thing. We've got this thing where we can kind of put something new together and just see what happens.
Amazing. It's exciting.
But as I said, it's like the songs that you write, it's like you can't slip the noose, really. You basically, it just sounds like Lighthouse Family because that's what you do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But as I said, I mean, and as far as Lighthouse Family is concerned, you know, at the moment that's not happening. Who knows?
Never say never, right?
Exactly. You know, who knows?